Hey everyone, welcome to the conversation today. I am Ben Eubanks. Welcome to HR Tech Talks. I'm so glad to have you here. Today, I have a chance to talk to the team at meQuilibrium. We're going to discuss resilience. We're going to talk about maybe why we all need that right now. Again, this is probably a receptive time to be having this conversation because we know that the world is unique and different and strange in a lot of ways. And so it's going to create some opportunities to dive into that, talk about the practical impact, some of the science behind it, things like that. I'm so excited to dig in this discussion today. I'm just, you know me, I'm a bit of a science nerd. That's one of the things I was talking to our guests about a little bit ago. I've had the distinct pleasure of becoming the informal science professor at our house during virtual school. And so for those of you dealing with virtual school and all the fun things that are aligned with that, I hope that you can appreciate that as well. So I'll go ahead and shut this off and bring up Neil Bruce. He's here with me to talk about what meQuilibrium is up to, and glad to have you, Neil. Welcome.
Thanks, Ben. I'm really excited to be with you and let everyone know what meQ is about. So thanks again.
Absolutely. So just to kind of kick us off a little bit, humanize yourself for the whole audience. We're going to talk about humans a lot today, actually. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Sure. I'm Neil Bruce. I live in the Boston area. I am the head of product at meQ. We help build organizational resilience for companies, both large and small. My background is I spent 11 years in HR practitioner roles, mostly in talent acquisition. And then I got hired by Monster.com to become a product manager for them. And then I've spent the last many years on the product side. And so I've spent about half my life either being in HR or building HR solutions for organizations. So that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. Wonderful. I have a friend who I talked to recently in Boston, and I don't know, it looks like you're maybe working from home. She said she had to go into the office, and it was the commute was 10 minutes when it's usually an hour. And she's like, I'm trying to enjoy this little silver lining right now while I can. So goodness. I'm excited to talk about meQ today, right? Talk about what you guys are up to, because as I kind of alluded to earlier, the focus is all around resilience, and you can tell us more about what they do, what you and the team do. But I'd love for you to talk about a little bit about, let's just go ahead and start with that. Why not? Let's talk about meQ, how you guys are serving customers, what sort of problems you're solving, why companies arrive at your doorstep, those kind of things. Because I think that'll help set the stage for some of the further discussion later. So we dive into the science behind it and things like that.
Sure. So companies are always trying to keep up with what's happening with the world and dealing with the rate of change. The rate of change, often driven by technology, is continues to grow and grow and grow. And us as humans, our ability to cope with that change is becoming harder and harder. There's a coping gap, and resilience helps close that coping gap. It helps not just individuals, but it helps teams, and ultimately helps organizations not just survive change, but hopefully thrive through change. And our customers, some of the largest companies in the world, they are leaders in their field, and they want to stay leaders in their field. And part of the way they see a path towards continued leadership is by becoming a more resilient organization. And that starts with individuals learning about themselves, and I'll talk more about how the product works later, but people learn about themselves as individuals. They realize that resilience is a set of skills that can be learned, a set of competencies that we can grow in, and it demystifies kind of the path towards resilience. And so people at an individual level can become more resilient and understand how to deal with challenges and to overcome them better and stay focused longer. I mean, resilience in a nutshell is the ability to stay emotionally focused in problem-solving mode for longer periods of time in order to create greater outcomes. And so we help companies do that. Initially, it was individual-based, and then we started building on layers around teams, because there's a team dynamic and an opportunity for teams to become more resilient. And ultimately, we aggregate information up for organizational insights, because companies have resources, they don't know how to apply them, where to apply them. And so we give them data at an aggregate level to help people see, this group is low in positivity, this group is low at empathy, this group is not getting enough sleep, etc. And so then they can use these different components that build up in total to resilience and helps them become a more effective company.
One of the things that I've done in some of the research that we've looked at this year is everybody wants to know what's happening at the macro level, obviously. And a lot of people are talking about that, but I also feel like there's a big gap about the micro, the personal level, the individual level, because as you're saying there, we can even go really deep into specific types of drivers of resilience, like someone's sleep, someone's empathy, like those things that tie in and roll up into that. But I feel like there's an opportunity to really dive into this, because more than ever, we've realized that each of us are unique. We have our own unique issues, our own challenges. And in the past, it was like, oh, let's assume that 70% of the workforce is this, or 30% of the workforce is that. But now we see, hey, suddenly parents have a different kind of challenge than someone who's young and single, but maybe living and working in the same place as three other roommates, and they've got to figure out how to navigate this, versus someone who's all these different varieties of things that we've all now suddenly become aware of and exposed to, because before it was just you were at work, or you were whoever else you were when you're not at work. And now those things are blending together, and it's created this interesting picture, it feels like, where we're suddenly more conscious of and more considerate of those unique things that make each of us kind of tick.
Yeah, and resilience, for all those reasons, is really going mainstream. I mean, a few years ago, we'd have to explain, what is resilience? Why does it matter? I think everyone gets it at a very visceral level, that we are all struggling to cope with a pandemic and financial challenges and political unrest and social unrest and so many different things. And people are struggling. They're struggling at an individual level. They're struggling at a family level. They're struggling to stay focused at work. They're struggling to get exercise when maybe their gym is closed, or to sleep well when they've got all these worries. And so what we do is we break down these different elements, and we help people have small little wins on a daily basis that helps them over time grow and get better. I mean, I can tell you personally, I've been at meQ for a little over 2 years, and I'm sleeping better, I'm eating better, I'm getting daily exercise, I'm thinking about what I'm grateful for on a daily basis in ways that I haven't done before. And I will say, I think this stuff works. I think that resilience is something you can learn, and resilience is something that organizations can implement and really help them grow.
So you talked about some of the different aspects of that. If someone goes and checks the meQuilibrium website, one of the things they'll see immediately is like the science focus. Right? This isn't Neil's opinion of the world, which is valuable in itself, but there's a lot of data behind this that actually backs up the importance of resilience and ties into that, right?
Yes, two of our founders are doctors. So we have Dr. Andrew Chate, PhD in psychology, has spent over 25 years looking at the science of resilience, doing different validation studies. We continue to do validation studies every few years to continue to optimize our science and make sure that what we are doing with our members at an individual, team, and organization level is creating efficacy. And then another one of our founders is Dr. Adam Perlman. He's a medical doctor of integrated medicine. And so we've got one doctor focused on how the mind works and how our thinking really shapes our world. And we have another doctor founder who is looking at how the whole body works together with the mind in order to give you a complete experience, because you can have your mind in the right place, but if your body is not, then that's going to affect your ability to be resilient and cope with change, and vice versa is also true. So we've done a lot of research and analysis on these areas, and what we find is, that balance of taking good care of your body, taking good care of your mind, understanding that everyone comes at this world with certain views. Some of those are shaped to have us look at the world a certain way, and we have to understand what those are. We use these terms like iceberg beliefs and thinking traps to help people understand that sometimes they'll have views that will challenge them. So, for example, some people have a belief that the world should be fair, and right now those people are struggling because the world does not feel fair right now. And if you're willing to let go of that a little bit and say, sometimes the world's not going to be fair, and that's okay. And I can do my best because I can control my own behavior. I can control my own response to the world, and give yourself some freedom and some grace to look at the world differently. Then I think that people can be stronger. And so that's a lot of what we do. But science is a huge part of what we're about. We start every member with a 90 question assessment. We get about a 92% completion rate on that. What does that mean? That means we know more about how people think, why they do what they do, particularly under stress, and how we can help them get stronger. And so we have deep, deep knowledge at an individual level that we share with those members so that they can better understand themselves and grow from that. And then we aggregate up for insights so that we can see, are there populations who are chronically undersleeping, or are there populations who are showing signs of clinical anxiety or depression or other challenges? And then we can help navigate those people to specialist resources so that they get the help they need in a time of challenge. So I'm excited about how our science, we continue to invest more in our science, continue to run additional studies, because I feel like if it's not science-based, then you're really not on solid footing.
One of the things that you said a second ago kind of tipped this in my mind. You talked about how you've been using this personally for a period of time. And 2 years ago, if you had said, hey, in November of 2020, you're going to be doing all of these things, you have these kind of behaviors, these kind of habits built around these things, that might have seemed like a far stretch. So it seems like even in today's kind of microwave, I need a quick kind of culture, it seems like the answer to this is not a go read this one article and you'll be all set on resilience, or here's a 2-minute video just to solve your problem. But it seems like part of this is also that commitment to improvement over time, or just awareness over time is part of it, I think, right? Talk about that piece of it and how it's not a okay, there you go. It's more of a progress and more of a journey than a destination.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, habits shape destiny, and it's important. I'm a huge fan of, some people love the book Atomic Habits. I enjoyed that. I also, I love BJ Fogg's Tiny Habits. I think it's a more science centric, but both of them come at this concept of how, humans change best by making little adjustments on a regular basis. It's not like an epiphany moment. Rarely do epiphany moments change people's lives. It's usually little things like, pre-making some food for the week so that you have a better diet than just grabbing whatever's in front of you, or doing a few exercises before going into your office for the day or whatever. These little things can add up to really change. And what lots of science has shown is by making little improvements in one area of your life, you're probably going to get improvements in other areas of your life too. And it kind of doesn't matter where you start, just improve somewhere and you'll see you're going to get improvement in other areas. And so what we do is we break down in our product these little micro steps, micro habits that can take anywhere from 1 to 5 minutes each. And if you're just doing, 1 or 2 a day, 2 or 3 times a week, you're going to see change in your life. And then it will motivate you to look at, how can I, as a leader, you might say, how can I model resilience for my team? And how can I get my team motivated to think about, what do we do when we're under a deadline as a group? What do we do? Do we start complaining? Do we start, having, thinking like this is not going to work and going into reactive thinking? Or do we stay in a positive framework and say, well, we got to use creativity? These are all the real challenges that people and organizations face. And the great news is you can train your mind to think differently and think more creatively.
You didn't define thinking traps earlier, but that sounds like one of them, right? Where you instantly you go back into that old habit of, oh no, the pressure's on, and suddenly I'm going to slip back into that thing that I've done, just my natural response to things, instead of, okay, hold on, wait a minute. I need to think through this. Let's take a moment. I'm aware of what's happening. We've faced this before, and thinking through it, the more logical, less emotional kind of response to that. I don't know that you didn't define thinking traps. I don't know if you throw that out there, but that's what I'm hearing.
For sure. So, there are all these different examples of thinking traps, and sometimes it's easier to think of them as examples. But like, one of the things that people tend to do is go to worst case thinking. Like, what's going to happen? Like, if we don't make this deadline, then like we're not going to get our bonuses, and maybe we're going to get laid off, and maybe I'm not going to be able to feed my kids. And then it's like just catastrophizing, and then it just gets into people just shut down. And if you can take a breath and frankly, like a few deep breaths. And we actually have a breathing component in our app to help people take some deep breaths and kind of say, wait a minute, that doesn't necessarily have to happen. And we can probably come up with some solutions and not go down this terrible rabbit hole of defeat. And so I think that not only can individuals be stronger over time through habit forming activities, but they can help pull each other forward, pull each other up, and help each other. And I think this dynamic of team resilience is really exciting for us as an organization to look at and to help. And we have courses that are specifically designed for people to do as a group. So your work team can say, like, what are signs of us demonstrating thinking traps as a group? Like, at what times do we seem to kind of be the most inspired to be creative, and when do we kind of shut down? And when can we notice triggers, so that when somebody or a few people in a group are starting to show those triggers, say, hey, we know what we're doing. We're falling into thinking traps, or we're thinking we're identifying some iceberg beliefs. We've got to get through that, and just giving language to our thoughts is helpful.
You mentioned earlier that from a company level, you can see these insights too. I keep going back and forth here. Sorry, my brain feels like a squirrel today. Like I'm just following those interesting pieces of this. But
sure.
You talked about the team level. At a company level, you can see some high level insights into, hey, we've got a pocket of people over here that are having issues with empathy, right? Or there are sleep issues that are constantly popping up in this team.
Right.
Maybe let's look at what those drivers are that are pushing those and see what we can do to alleviate that.
Yeah. So I'll give some examples. I'll give some examples of that. So we work with a huge brand name company who does manufacturing, and we saw that something like a quarter of their workforce in that plant was not getting enough sleep. And what's interesting, what I find, so I had a head of HR at this company come to me, and they said, she said, I need like the 30-second summation. And I said, no sleep, no safety. Just say that to your exec team. No sleep, no safety. And sometimes it's that simple. But what's also really fascinating, as I've dug into the data, is the averages are misleading, which you'll find, I'll use another example, physical activity, which is another element. We track 18 different factors of resilience. But like with physical activity, you'll literally have couch potatoes and marathon runners in the same organization. And on average, it looks okay. But in reality, you've got some elite athletes, and you have people who are just not doing enough to keep their bodies healthy. And so what we can do is we can do targeting. Sometimes it'll be certain departments are skewed one way, certain departments are skewed a different way. And then you can help at a departmental level, have HR generalists get in there and have conversations with their leaders about changing the way they look. I mean, another example we talked before the show is this can be used both to correct and to inspire. So we have another world famous leading company who uses design thinking, and they wanted to find out who are their exemplars in empathy and have them take courses in design thinking, so we can target people for their potential as well as for their opportunities to grow.
The empathy thing spurred that, and I remembered a few minutes ago, Erica had actually asked a question about how this connects in with the DEI conversation that's happening around the world right now. I don't know if the empathy is a good gateway into that discussion or not, but I'm curious, is there a way that what you're doing helps organizations that are thinking about that? Is there a way to tie those two conversations together?
For sure. We absolutely get asked about this, and we offer some skills around understanding hidden bias, for example. That's one of our skills. It helps us all realize that we look at the world through a certain lens. We get more data in our eyes than our brains can deal with. And so we filter. Our brains will choose. I'll take that. I won't take that. What does that mean? We get a filtered view of the world. And it's not always the most accurate view of the world. We also have been born into a culture that has certain predispositions. And by understanding why we kind of formed our early views in life, understanding that like everyone looks at the world, literally looks at the world and processes the world a different way, then it changes the conversation. And we have had several of our customers ask us to help them think about how we can help people look at the world differently. Obviously, empathy is a core part of this. Understanding how to realize when your views might be challenging people in a way that you want to change. Realize when you can be an ally for those who are having challenges, and realize when you're being discriminated against, how our resilience tools can help you. So I look at this as like there's three different roles that we can play, and we can, the same person can play those three different roles in the same day. Somebody who's being challenged in one setting might be the one challenging in a different setting. And so I think that for us to understand that as humans, we are not perfect beings, and we need to learn how to work better with each other. We crave connections as humans, and we often have our histories block that connection. And so by understanding our history better, and our personal histories better, and our social systemic histories better, we can help people work better together. And companies realize that this has got not just organizational implications, but it has financial implications, that this is a business imperative to get this right. And so I think that this is an area that we're going to do more. And we have worked with consultants that are specialized in this area to look at our content and to look at our assessments and to make sure that we're doing the best we can do internally. So we're definitely taking this seriously.
Excellent. Well, goodness, so many different things that you talked about that I'm trying to think about how to dive into. One of the things that's come back to me a couple of times, because I talked about this being an individual, personal kind of thing, but then you mentioned a couple different examples of how we can get insights into different teams, different layers in the organization that we just can't see. It's funny you use the eyes thing, because we didn't talk about that beforehand. But one of the things that I often say is we as humans have a limited amount of things we can process and understand and then act on. But if you have a tool that's asking 90 different questions about each person, it has a lot of insights into the things that are going on in their world, how they see things, what issues they have, and it can start to help us react more proactively to those things that they need, the issues that they have. And again, it can see those at a very granular level versus us just saying, Mary seems like she's pretty tough. I think she might be resilient, but Steve, he problem comes up, he kind of wimps out. He probably isn't very resilient. Like we can make those guesses, but we don't know without having some data behind it. But I love that you can see with real clarity, actual science, right? The validated assessment that there are certain things happening in the organization, and then you can react to those accordingly, whether it's at a personal level, it's at a team level, departmental, organizational level, across the board. It gives you a lot of different levers to pull as an HR leader, as a business leader, to try to get those outcomes that you're shooting for.
Yes, and at the individual level, so most HR people wouldn't have the detailed assessment information that we will collect, and what we can do is we can route people to the services. So there are people who are in need for clinical support, and we can route people to those clinical supports. There are other people who are in a different place and just need to grow. There are other people who are exemplars in different elements of resilience. And we actually have this feature called Mentor Match, where within the same company, people can mentor each other in areas of resilience. So for example, if you were a exemplar in focus and I'm always distracted, then we give content. So you're not leading this blindly, but you could be my mentor in focus. And then we can talk through, like, what are my goals? What does it mean to be focused at our company? What does that really mean practically? And how can we use some of these skills and activities in the program to help me be a little more focused? Like, Neil, stop reading emails when you're trying to get something done in a deadline, or turn your phone off, or like get better sleep, or there's certain things that will help with each of these factors. And so we really think that people can, it's not just about our program, it's also about people helping people. And so we're excited to do all those things.
Probably need to flip those roles a little bit. I bet I'm less focused than you are, and you could just give me a little bit of pointers, give me some help. So we've heard about some of the great things you're already doing. What are you most excited about, or what's next? You can pick one of those to answer because we only have a little bit of time left. But what's exciting you right now about the trajectory that meQ is on?
I'm excited that resilience is going mainstream and we don't really have to explain what it is anymore. People understand the value of it, and I'm excited to see how not just people but teams and organizations realize that resilience can help companies support each other on a human basis, but also help them strive towards creativity. I'm a big believer that curiosity and empathy and resilience and emotional connection, they all drive towards creativity, and that's what people want. uh, and I think that over the next few years it's going to be fascinating. There's going to be much more human machine cooperation, and how do we think about how to be resilient in that world where, like, our jobs are going to change and the things that are math and repetitive are going to get replaced, and we're going to have to do things that more make us human. So what does it mean to be human? What does it mean to be a human working with automation? All of that, I think it's fascinating, and I think our need for resilience is only going to grow as the pace of technology accelerates.
This year has been a case study, if there ever was one, for why we need resilience at a population level and at an individual level. And there are so many different use cases for that. This has been so incredible. So if someone wants to know more about what meQuilibrium is up to, what's the best way to get in touch?
Yeah, it's really easy. You can go to our website, meQuilibrium.com, and you can request a demo. We'd be happy to show you the product and get you to learn more about us. So like I said, we support big companies. The biggest companies, some of the biggest companies in the world use us, and we support smaller companies too. So kind of regardless of your size, go to our website, you can learn more.
Wonderful. Danielle just actually chimed in a second ago and said curiosity is a skill that we often overlook in the business context. So she's definitely agree with you, Danielle, chiming in here at the last minute. I would agree with you definitely, and I love how Neil tied that in with how that and empathy can play a role in creating creativity in the business. I talked to a technology leader when I was writing my book. Well, it seemed like 100 years ago now, but it was just a few years ago. I talked to a technology leader, not an HR person. And he said the most important skill that we have in the entire workforce right now is our imaginations, our creativity, because we can dream up things that an algorithm could never figure out. We can dream up solutions. We can dream up we dream up new problems too. We need to solve. But he said that the imagination was the most incredible thing that we have at our fingertips. And I thought that was really exciting to hear that from someone who focuses on technology, because it's easy to say, well, this programming tool or that language or this new technology, but instead it's a focus on the human mind and what it can do. So Neil, fine example of a human mind. I appreciate your time today. Appreciate the opportunity to chat with you and learn more about what meQ is up to. This has been an enjoyable discussion, and the audience, thank you to the audience for chiming in. Any last words, closing comments before we wrap it up?
It was great to spend this time with you, Ben. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you, sir. To everybody else, thank you for hanging out with us. Appreciate your time today. And every week, we're here every single week talking to different providers they're doing great things, just like meQ is doing. Again, you can check them out, ping them. They're happy to reach out to you. And I think Pam, their head of marketing, is in the comments, has been kind of chiming in as well. So you ping her if you have a question about what they're up to. Thank you to all of you for joining us today. Enjoy your week, stay resilient, and appreciate your time.